We are in Brussels for ETHCC, and today I'm with Mert. How is the conference going for you so far?
It's going good. I'm coming from London, so there's sun, so that's a big plus. Not the best food, but good beer, good fried cheese and whatnot. Yeah, so
Are you enjoying Belgium?
yeah, I actually like it. I mean, it's a little dangerous, smells bad a little bit, but overall I like it.
You're like, well, coming from London, anything.
Yeah, the best part of London was actually the train here because I didn't have to wait in the massive
Yes.
passport line.
I want to start from the beginning. So tell me your story. How did you get into the industry?
I did a double in applied math and radio engineering in a small school in Canada called Queen's. I worked at Blackberry there for a year when Blackberry was a thing. I remember actually the new CEO had just joined and he's like, we're not getting rid of the keyboard, whatnot. And then after a few months, that did not work out great. I just really liked kind of the idea of shipping software because I was going to do like a PhD in physics at first. And then I was like, okay, I'm kind of now industry pilled. And so I worked at the big banks in Canada. There's 5 big banks in Canada that basically rule everything. I worked at 4 of them.
At 4.
Yes, short stints, but basically doing like investment banking, infrastructure, trading infrastructure, just boring nerd stuff. It just moved too slow and it was like crippling with bureaucracy and all this stuff. And so I joined a few fintech startups. That was slightly better. Actually, one day I had to design this debit card that had to send money from Canada to Australia. If you know like how digital payments work, it needs to like go through these different jurisdictions over the world before it gets there. And I was like, this is super stupid. Like, why do we have to do this? Why not just use something like a USDC on a blockchain? Basically, the manager is responsible for something like crypto's a scam. And
What year was that?
2021, something
Okay.
like that. So this was like before like the big bull market that kind of kicked off everything. I didn't like that answer. And so I joined Coinbase roughly 2-3 weeks after that. That was great. I worked at Coinbase, helped build some of the things that like power Coinbase.com, Coinbase Wallet, etc. And then Coinbase went public. So that was a fun time. At the same time, I was like building stuff on Solana, shit posting and all this. I was like, there's a lot of things that are kind of broken right here. So I'm just going to quit and then start a company to help solve them. And so started a company called Helius, which is infrastructure for Solana for developers to use to build things.
So you're at Coinbase. What triggered, like, I'm going to get out of here and do my own thing?
I used to just hack around and build stuff on my own time. Like back in the day, there was like a big NFT bull run. There would be like these influencers on Solana and they would say bizarre shit like, you know, this is going to moon, whatever. But then if you actually looked at the blockchain, they would have 99% of the supply and then they would just be letting other people mint like 1% of it. But there was no like explorers on Solana or no analytics sites and stuff. And so I'd write the code and look at it myself. And I was like, this is actually kind of full of shit. And so I just post on Twitter with my findings. And then as I was doing that, I was like, okay, actually writing this code on Solana is quite hard. It already scales, like the chain scales, at least at that time, much better than anything else. Now it's a bit closer. And at Coinbase, I was in charge of like, let's say using external providers for what Coinbase uses for their own systems. And there's just nothing on Solana. Couple that with the fact that I get annoyed super easily and I have no patience really. I was just like, okay, fuck it. We're just going to start a company.
How was the response to that initially?
We got rejected quite a bit because we were a Solana only team at a time where everything was Ethereum and let's say Optimism and Polygon. And so everybody basically said no. People were like, no, like Solana market is too small. You should go to EVM or Ethereum where the developers are. But then I was like, actually, I want to kind of capture the small market first and then grow from there because I think Solana can scale. So finally was able to get one investor to say yes to us. And the way I met him was actually from shit posts on Twitter. I posted something when I had like 10 followers on Twitter about something like how 70, 80-year-olds have declining mental skills and they're not even allowed to work anywhere, but they're running the country. And so some like guy saw that and then became friends after that. He's a VC. And then he introduced me to another VC who was like a Solana VC by chance. And then he's like, yeah, we love this idea.
Which one was it?
Reciprocal Ventures.
Okay, yeah.
And Craig, they're in New York.
We had someone coming earlier. Will come tomorrow from Reciprocal.
James?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was the story. And then since then, we've been building a lot on Solana. And then FTX happened. And then people are like, hey, like, are you going to move chains? We're like, no, we're not going to move chains. And at the time, a lot of people on Twitter were like, oh, you know, Solana's a scam. It's a dead chain, all this stuff. And then I started getting a bit vocally angry and I would just
Which is how you grow on Twitter. And how does it look like today?
Since then, we raised a Series A and we've grown roughly 250x. We're profitable. We make a good amount of money. We just released a new product called ZK Compression, which got torn apart on Twitter because Ethereum people are like, oh, you should just call this a roll-up, but it's not a roll-up.
How's it different?
Oh, well, I mean, I can get into the weeds there, but basically it's a way of making storage less expensive on Solana, whereas a rollup helps scale compute on Ethereum.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the not too technical answer. And yeah, we've been quite successful. Now we power everything from like Coinbase to like Helium, which my company's name is Helius, but Helium sounds similar. And so people always get us mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, I was giving a talk in New York. This guy comes up to me afterwards and he's like, you know, I lost all my money because somebody like saw my password over public Wi-Fi. Like, what do you plan to do about this? I was like, what do you mean? What do I plan to do about this? And he thought I was part of Helium, which does like mobile networks. And I didn't actually tell him otherwise. I was like, yeah, we're going to do encryption and whatnot. So I went along with it.
Oh, you get to do customer service for Helium in person.
Mm-hmm.
What's the vision? Where are you taking the company?
The vision is really to accelerate the adoption of crypto systems. At the time when we started the company, my big kind of annoyance was like, everybody's building infrastructure, but we need apps, we need products that people use such that there's actually some substance during, you know, bear markets and volatility and stuff, and people actually need the things. And like on Solana, you could already build things at scale, like applications you didn't need to wait for, let's say, some roadmap to be realized in 4 or 5 years. Just didn't have the time for that. And so everything has been tailored towards helping app developers and people who build products kind of have an idea in their head and then just bring it to reality by using the platform. So they go to Helius, they have all the tools they need, and they're able to ship something that scales and actually focus on their users and their business, as opposed to, you know, weird blockchain quirks. They're quite annoying. And so we'll deal with those. And yeah, that's the vision.
There's this notion that the industry went through like having the Bitcoin era, the Ethereum era, the Solana era. Do you think there's going to be another one? Or do you think these will be the 3 pedestals that will hold the industry?
It's a hard question anytime you're asked to predict the future. I would say for sure there will be another, let's say, era, maybe multiple. But like, for example, when Ethereum happened, Bitcoin didn't die. When Solana happened, Ethereum didn't die. And so I don't think those 3 go away. I think it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. And then I think there's room for others. So, you know, there's things like Monad, Bearchain, there's more L2s like Mega ETH, Base, etc. So I think maybe like 1 or 2 more iterations until people kind of converge on the same ideas, because fundamentally all the ecosystems are kind of building the same thing. It's just like blockchains and then trust minimizing them, and then fundamentally getting it useful for people to actually, you know, let's say do commerce internationally or make payments or, you know, trade or do social networks. I think we're getting close. I think we're certainly much closer than we were before. And so probably like 1 or 2 more cycles. And I think there'll be new winners as well. Like, I don't think Solana will be always. It's very dangerous to think like we're number one, we'll always be number one and we cannot be surmounted or something like that. And so, but I think those 3 are big pillars now. And so now you need like a 10x improvement over that. Right? Because like Ethereum is a big improvement over Bitcoin, Solana is a big improvement over Ethereum, at least the L1. And then now it needs to be something that's even better than those, which I think can happen.
Do you think we'll ever have a Solana ETF?
Yes, we will. Well, Canada just announced one. I was actually talking to the team there. They were also the first ones that did the Ethereum one in Canada. And then 2 weeks ago, VanEck and 21 Shares also filed for Solana ETFs. So I think it's a matter of time. I mean, I don't care too much about it. It's just a fun narrative.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it'll happen.
Okay.
Roughly 100%.
Do you have any strong opinions on the US election and its impact on the crypto industry? What's your take on this?
I mean, certainly the current administration is awful. I'm not sure they know what they're doing, or maybe they really know what they're doing, which is even worse probably. I don't like the fact that it's 2 senior citizens running, and it's unclear if any of them are actually able to reason about these things. It seems like Trump is at least more pro-crypto. I'm not sure if that's because Biden's anti-crypto or because he actually likes crypto. I'm not sure. There was like the whole fiasco of like Donald J. Trump coin on Solana for a little bit, where I think his son Barron or something was like potentially going to launch a coin. So I mean, at least they seem more open to it. But like probably the way I think about it is it doesn't matter too much. Like, it's a delay in the worst case. Let's say the US doesn't adopt it as well, then maybe you slow down the industry by like 5-10 years. But crypto is global, right? People in Asia, right, Europe, even Africa, like North Africa, Latam, etc., are all kind of trying to make use of this thing. And so Asia is quite ahead, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. So, which is why people generally move to like a Dubai or a Singapore. So like, it's going to happen regardless, but obviously much better if the US is kind of leading the way
Yeah, there's a lot of push from like the public. It's just like if the government tries to stop, obviously we slow down. I think in Europe it's still like slower. I don't know if you agree with that. There's less push from the
Yeah,
public.
I troll Europe quite a bit on my Twitter. Europe would be probably slower, but there are, like, for example, Turkey, which only isn't partly in Europe, but like the inflation is like 80% or something crazy. And so the Turkish people like really turn to crypto. They really actually have a use for it. Europe also seems to have, like Portugal, for example, super, like Lisbon, super crypto friendly. And so there's a lot of like expats going there. Same with, like, for example, this conference is in Brussels, obviously. Paris seems to be getting a bit better as well, Amsterdam. And so I think like the legislation is a little intense. Like I think they were labeling like MEV like a crime or something without actually talking to many people. And it's unclear how that's enforced and stuff, but at least they're thinking about it. So,
How is it in Canada?
oh man.
It's not good?
Canada is, well, okay, so Canada obviously is a bunch of different provinces, right? In Ontario, first of all, leverage is illegal. The worst part of it is there's a 30K Canadian limit for buying crypto,
Okay.
unless it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. So you can buy as many of those as you want, but like I want to buy Solana, and so I need to create an account, and if I spend over 30K, I need to open up another exchange account. And I've done that now where there's no more exchanges left. And so that is a big barrier. The taxes are quite intense as well, like 50% plus. So Canada is also not doing great there either.
What's one thing that if it happened, it would enable the industry further? What's the one thing right now at the stage we are? Does anything come to mind?
If there was clearer regulation in the USA, I think a lot of teams, because a lot of teams in the States are super talented, but they're scared of like really talking about what they're building because, oh, you know, Genzio will come after me and, you know, put me in jail or something. And so they go off seas or offshores. And then when you do that, it actually ironically leads to more scams because people, it's like self-selection. Like the people that do that generally tend to be more, let's say, less risk averse. And so I think if the regulation was clear such that if you're just, you know, a builder and you want to, you know, go to Silicon Valley or New York or Miami, whatever, and just build something and then talk about it, like, hey, you can use this to do X, Y, Z. It's a decentralized protocol or something. That's already a huge unlock. I don't think scalability or infrastructure is like the bottleneck that people think it is. I think a lot of apps can scale today without really anything else other than maybe like an L2 or Solana. I also don't buy that UX is like the big issue. People will say like, oh, like the UX is awful or something like that. But it's like, if you like remember the early years like MySpace or Facebook or any of these new apps that came out, all like their UX was awful when it first came out.
Yeah.
But if the thing is worth doing such that it gives you value, then, you know, whatever, you'll take the 5 seconds required to onboard yourself.
I think on that is like the patience today as well is different when new audiences are maybe less patient and curious because there's more going on. I guess MySpace time, people probably had less to do and that was very novel. So the patience of like learning it maybe was more there. What do you think that the industry is not leveraging right now that could be putting more attention into?
One of the things I see, so I have a fund as well, so I invest in a bunch of early stage companies. There's a lot of people who, let's say, got rich from buying certain things early, and then now they think they know how to build a business, and so they can just ignore like the traditional wisdom of like startups from Web 2 before 0% interest rates and actually building a business, right? Like actually making money, revenue, looking at your runway, watching your margins and stuff like that. So just good old fashioned business building, I feel like is somewhat missing from crypto. And I think if people just leverage like some of these, you know, common wisdom in a sense, like everybody's kind of heard the tropes from like the Steve Jobs and the early days of Silicon Valley. In crypto, people tend to have like a set of technologies like the blockchain. And since they've already bought the token for the chain, they'll then take the chain and then they'll try to like retrofit it to like whatever use case. So like an analogy is if you have a bunch of doors, what you want to do is you want to study all the keyholes and then you want to design a key that can open them versus having a key and then just going through keyhole to keyhole and then trying to open one is like magic. It works, right? So we're going to work backwards from the gaps in the market and then design something around it. And then the blockchain doesn't necessarily have to be there in every single way, right? So you can't really get, let's say, the financial tribalism get in the way of actually building something people want.
So like reverse engineer the pain point and come back to
Yeah,
the solution.
like just look at the market, see the gaps. A lot of things suck. Does this annoy me enough such that I'm passionate about it, such that I want to build something? So, and then work backwards from that problem. And then if it's like Solana that solves the problem, great. If it's Ethereum, great. Bitcoin, whatever. You work backwards from the problem and then find the technology that best suits the problem for solving it, versus, you know, taking the technology and then kind of just trying to shove it into every little problem that exists. That doesn't work, as we've kind of seen.
People are describing this part of the cycle differently. There's different opinions. Some people say like, oh, we're like entering bull market. Some say we're already in. Some say like there's going to be a clearance of, you know, the noise, people that are in the industry just for building a product, but not really just launching a token. For you, from your perspective, in what part are we? Like, how would you describe this part?
So I fundamentally reject the idea of describing things in terms of like price movements of like up, down and stuff, because that's super volatile and non-linear, meaning that if there's like a big event that nobody sees coming tomorrow, everything changes. And so everything I say today is invalidated right away. It's not like some linear thing where it's like you can predict it. Because if people could predict it, everybody would be rich, nobody would be here anymore, right? And so I think maybe on a more macro level, there's different segments of the crypto market. Obviously, there's traders and people who are much more interested in the speculation aspect and all this. But from my perspective, I obviously care about like the technology and building it such that it works to solve problems. From that sense, we're in, I think, roughly the best spot we've been in. Like the tech is actually quite scalable. The security is getting better. There's more smart people, engineers, new grads, et cetera, coming in. Even ones from AI are kind of coming in and seeing how they can combine these things, which probably a little ugly in AI x crypto. But fundamentally, if you look at the things that actually matter and your time horizon is, you know, greater than 6 months, and, you know, ideally it's something like 5 to 10 years at least, then I think we're in the best spot we've been in for a while.
Every time that there's something new in the industry, it's sort of like the building blocks, right? And whenever something new that changes, that enables a whole new dynamic, a lot of new good things tend to be built. Is there a block that you feel like that is missing that would enable a whole new set of tools, or perhaps it would be like onboarding more users, something as such?
So I think like each ecosystem kind of has their own issues that are bottlenecks respectively for whatever problems they have. I think like we already talked about regulation, that's a big one just as a macro. On Solana, one of the issues was, or two of the issues was like, it was hard to land transactions because people would like spam like shit coins, and they would try to go on like pump.fun or something and get like all these celebrity coins. And so that congested the network. And then now we have a patch for it. So now that works. And then there's more upgrades coming on the way. And the second one was that storage was too expensive. So like if you wanted to mint, let's say 100,000 NFTs, that would cost you like $2.5 million or something. And then now we have something called compression, which makes that like maybe $1,000 or maybe even less. And so like a big technological change there that unlocks a bunch of different use cases. So for example, tokenizing content, right? Like you could make this episode into some sort of a token and distribute it through like crypto rails so that you can't be deplatformed. Maybe you can monetize it better, have more ownership, compose with other platforms and front ends. On Ethereum, the base layer of the L1, like the scaling has been outsourced to rollups, L2s. And then now Ethereum is maybe looking at, okay, do we perhaps scale a bit more on the L1 itself? And then maybe once they do that, it'll unlock more better UX, better latency, better kind of price discovery and all these things. So those are like the technical ones. But fundamentally, I think the two things that we already talked about is one is regulation. And then two is the incentive structures in crypto are like quite broken, right? As a founder, you perhaps have an idea, you work on it for 2 months, 3 months, release a token, you're now a millionaire. And perhaps you're not so interested in the long-term thing anymore because you want to just go on a yacht or something, which we've seen happen. Whereas in Web 2, obviously, you have illiquid equity that gets vested and the incentives are different. And it's not like retail isn't telling you how you should run your company. And so you don't get distracted by that. And so I think regulation is one. And then two is the short-term incentives make it such that building a business is much harder in crypto than in Web 2. Once that's like a bit better, because like building a business, a startup is super hard. And the only real way to succeed is to just not give up and do it for many, many years, right? Like Coinbase, for example, was around for like 8 years before they actually started being, I mean, they were always well known, but like making it as a public company and whatnot. And 8 years is a long time. And especially in crypto where people are like, oh, the price is down today, it's over, I'm going home.
Right.
Yeah.
For everyone watching, where can they find you?
0xMert_. on Twitter.
Mert, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up?
This is
But
Zach.
it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a
How
hive.
many know we do not understand that we do not want to have?
Ladies and gentlemen,
We're back at the Genzio Media House.